Recently, I made an addendum to a couple videos and included some things I'd found in the King James Bible frontispiece. It turns out there's a lot more here, and it should make us wonder who Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, really was. In case you didn't see the last video, I need to go over some of what I presented first, then I'll show everything new that's been found. In the inscription are three words referring to royalty: majesties at the beginning of line 9, kings at the end of line 12, and below that, majesty at the end of line 13. I'm going to start with the word kings, which is the 47th word from the beginning of the inscription, and if you count from the end of it, the 7th word. If we apply the 23-letter Latin alphabet, which the codes in the Shakespeare works use, and gematria, where letters equal numbers, A is 1, B is 2, and so on, the letters spelling Vere add up to 47. Even though that's an interesting coincidence, I don't think that's what's important here. In Shakespeare's sonnets, there are 17 printed with these double V characters. I explain what's going on with them in video 44, but here I want to point out how sonnet 57 is one of the 17. These double V's hint at Edward de Vere, who sometimes signed his name double V. And 57 was likely chosen because it's equal to 17 plus 40. In his videos, Alexander Waugh explains how 1740 is a cipher for Edward de Vere, 17 being his Earl number. There's debate over the exact meaning of 40, but Waugh explains it's a play on the fourth T, or 4T. Please see his videos Thomas Edwards New or The Divinity of Man for details. I'll refer to 40 as de Vere's code number. Now, just as 57 is 17 plus 40, 47 is 7 plus 40. This cipher would be Edward de Vere's if he had been king, Edward VII. Like I explained in the previous video, I first started finding what I thought were 740 codes in the King James Bible. Later, Chris Johnson also began finding the numbers and figured out that 47 is 7 plus 40. So kings being the 47th and 7th word from the beginning and end of the inscription, I believe alludes to Edward de Vere's king and code number 740, and his number as Edward VII. Now if you look at the last letters along the right side of the inscription, you'll see that there are three T's at the end of the words Testament, Commandment, and Robert. The fourth T is just below the word kings. It's spelled T-I-E at the end of the word majesty, one of the three words in the inscription that means royalty. Now take a moment and look at the word kings above it. Look at the letters K and G and how their lines extend downwards into each other. The loop of the G and the line from the K combine to make two letters, OX, spelling ox. Here's what they look like when they're separated from each other. Remember, counting the T's along the right side, the T-I-E in majesty is the fourth T, or 4T. And it's typeset just below the OX, spelling ox 4T. Here's another way to look at it. Kings is the 47th and 7th word, alluding to Edward de Vere's king and code number as Edward VII. De Vere is also known as Oxford. 40 sounds like 4D, the second syllable in Oxford. Ox 40 is a homophone of Ox 4D, and when you spell it out, it's Oxford. So the code or message here is King's Oxford. Elsewhere on the frontispiece, there's an ox representing Luke the Evangelist sitting next to him. An ox is symbolized by its horns. And the ox's horns are lined up directly across from the Ox 4T or Oxford below Kings. I think this was done intentionally and helps validate the Oxford message. Alright, so hidden at the end of the line beneath the word kings is Oxford. At the beginning of the same line, two more letters interact with each other, the P in imprinted and the B in Barker. Just like the K and G in Kings, this interaction creates two more letters, a lowercase e and a letter V. Since Oxford appears at the end of the line, I can't think of anyone else these letters stand for other than Edward Vere. Alright, now the EV is at the beginning of the line, and the word Kings over the Oxford T or Oxford is at the end of it. I don't know if this is necessary, but there is a 1740. Notice the capital letters before the word kings. There's a capital B and a capital P. Using gematria, B is equivalent to 2 and P is equal to 15. Added together, 2 and 15 is 17. Next, there are 4 words before the word kings. And lastly, when you count the number of characters, which includes the comma before the word kings, there are 19. The gematria value of 19 is equal to the letter T. Between the EV at the beginning of the line and King's Oxford at the end of it, the capital letters are equal to 17. There are 4 words and 19 characters, 19 being equal to T, 17 for T. Alright, that was on line 12 and pretty much what I covered in the last video. Below it, on line 13, something that stood out was the large E in excellent, which has a V stroke, making it look similar to the EV beginning line 12. Also, the large letters, the E in excellent and the capital M in majesty, have gematria values equal to 5 and 12, totaling 17. So it's similar to line 12, which also has an EV and letters equal to 17. The thing is, at the time, I didn't see anything else that went with it and wanted to get the video posted. After I did, a few people who saw the video also noticed the EV and the letters adding to 17. So it wasn't just me who picked up on this. If you're watching this video, you probably know who Alan Green is. He's made extraordinary discoveries in this Shakespeare game, posting them on his YouTube channel called The Bard Code, and his website, tobeornottobe.org. Since Alan's also worked with the Bible frontispieces, including the one in the New Testament, I sent him what I found here on line 12 to ask what he thought. I didn't say anything about line 13, but Alan also noticed the EV in excellent and realized there's something incredible that goes with it. Look at the letters before the EV. The word is most, but look at the last 2 letters, the ST. Alan saw that the S and T combine and form a single character that resembles an R. Followed by the EX in excellent, it spells rex, the Latin word for king. He also noticed that if we begin with the V and read the letters the Rosicrucian way, right to left, they spell V-E-R, Vere, the Latin root for truth. Just like with line 12, there's a lowercase ev connected to a word meaning royalty. Here the word is rex. Hidden with this is the word Vere meaning truth. Is EV, Rex, and Vere telling us that Edward Vere is the true king? I'm not sure if this is part of what's here, but like I pointed out earlier, the large letters are E, which are equal to 5, and M equal to 12. 5 and 12 is 17. Once we get the number 17, immediately following it are 4 letters, followed by the TIE in majesty, 17 for T. I don't know if that's a legitimate way to get 1740, or if we're only supposed to focus on the E and M equaling 17. I'm just pointing out that if 1740 is needed to be found on the line to go with the EV Rex code, then here it is. Notice how both EVs use lowercase and are connected to words meaning royalty. Line 12 begins with EV and ends with kings, and in line 13 the EV is part of the hidden word Rex, which, if we first start with the V and read right to left, spells Vere, meaning truth. It's believed that messages like these, if they're true, should be found 3 times. So is there a third lowercase EV connected to a word meaning royalty? In the inscription, there's the word kings with majesty printed beneath it. The Rex that Alan Green found is hidden. The only other word here that means royalty is majesties at the beginning of line 9. It's the 29th word of the inscription. Since kings is word 47, equivalent to 7 plus 40, Edward de Vere's king and code number, there may be a reason why majesties is word 29. The number 29 could stand for a couple things. Using gematria, 2 is equal to the letter B and 9 is equal to I. BI are initials for Boaz and Yakin, the pillars of Freemasonry. However, I've mentioned in several videos that I believe 12 is sometimes used for 40 or 4T, and since 29 is 17 plus 12 or 4T, I think it might be used to indicate Edward de Vere in the way that 57 is 17 plus 40 and 47 7 plus 40. Notice that sonnet 29, like sonnet 57, is another of the 17 sonnets printed with a double V. Okay, now look at the M in majesties. The very middle of it is, of course, distinctly in the shape of a letter V. But notice how typeset above it there's a lowercase e, just like with the other 2 examples of EV. Here's a closer look with the surrounding text removed. Drawing a box around the E, you can see how it's lined up directly over the V. We have a lowercase EV beginning line 12, ending with kings over ox and the 4th T in majesty. On line 13, a lowercase EV is part of the word Rex. And here on line 9, we have a third lowercase e typeset over the V shape made by the M in the word majesties. Like with the other 2 examples of EV and a word meaning king, I'm not sure if we're supposed to find 17 or 1740 to go with it. In case we are, here it is. If we focus just on the E and the M in majesties, their gematria values total 17. It may be a coincidence, but strangely enough, the letters before EM, the DILIG and diligently, have gematria values that, when added together, total 40. I'm certain the EV in majesties is one of the 3 EV royalty codes. Like with the other 2 though, I'm not sure if the 1740 is legit, or maybe there's another way to find a 1740 here. The thing is, I don't think the 1740s are necessary to validate the EV royalty codes. Maybe they're a part of the message, but the fact that there are 3 examples of EV, and they're each connected to a word meaning king, is enough to confirm that the codes are true, and I think tells us this was done by design. When I was working on the EV Majesty's code, there was something about the way the letters ILI and diligently were typeset beneath the letter G. There's another example of an L beneath a G, but it looks different. The one near the EV in Majesties has the L extending into the G. With the other, the L and the letter S before it both stop. When we rotate the 1 by the EV and Majesties a quarter turn, the dots from the letter I's look like they make a colon, and the L extending into the G appears to make another letter, an E followed by an O. We know that EO stands for Earl of Oxford. Now I'm not certain if anything's going on with these GL characters, but considering what they did with the EVs and OX, maybe they're doing something here. See, the other GL has an S that runs into it, but neither the L or S go into the G, like with the other example. The L stops, whereas the other continues into it. I mean, why would they draw these differently unless there's some intention? When the G is removed and the remaining character rotated a half turn, the S and L make a V shape. Could it be an initial for Vere? Again, I'm not sure if there's anything going on with the shape of these GL characters, but the fact that they're drawn differently and that there are other places in the inscription where letters combine to form new ones makes me think something similar is happening here. If you're watching the video and have any ideas, please leave a comment. I'm not the only one who noticed how the G's were typeset directly over the letter L's. Alan Green had seen them too and thought they might mean something. From a document online entitled Commonest Abbreviations Used in the Apparatus to a Classical Text, Alan showed that the lowercase gl is the abbreviation for glossa, or gloss. Definitions of gloss are: to mask the true nature of, a false and often willfully misleading interpretation as of a text, and to dispose of by false or perverse interpretation. The lowercase gls could be implying that the words of the inscription are gloss and mask the true king, Edward Vere. One more thing about the inscription. Counting the words, there are 10 before the first colon break, then another 7 before the next break. 10 and 7 add to 17. This could be indicating Edward de Vere's Earl number. After that, there are 36 words to the end of the inscription, but I'm not going to speculate on what 36 might mean. I'm just pointing out that 17 may have been encoded into the breaks in the word count. Okay, one more thing to show you. In the upper section of the frontispiece, there are 17 faces of Christ's followers. The angel and lion represent Matthew and Mark sitting next to them. Fellow researcher Chris Johnson, who posts videos under the name Nobody Oxfordian, rotated the frontispiece and found something that's been hiding in plain sight for over 400 years. The frame around the lamb makes an O, and St. Andrew's cross makes an X. Combined with the 17 faces, we have 17 Ox, which I think stands for 17 Earl of Oxford. There's an ox hiding behind Luke, and directly across from him, hidden in the K and G in Kings, is another ox. And when the frontispiece is turned upside down, the frame around the lamb and St. Andrew's cross also spell ox. Now here's the thing. Chris found the word ox, but a rose symbolizes Jesus, a red rose his sacrifice. In the frontispiece, Jesus is represented by the lamb. The round frame in the shape of an O surrounding Jesus, the sacrificial lamb, is a rose. And though the X is a cross, here it also serves as another letter. I'll explain. A Tauro cross, also called a starogram, is similar to a Chi-Rho symbol. It's a Greek R combined with a T. RT are initials for Rosicrucians. The Rho character makes a loop on the right side of the Tau character. To simulate this, the O or rose is drawn on the right side of the T. This is why the O appears offset to the right. We find this character in some interesting places. like the Bible inscription, which is part of another code explained in the previous video. I also found it as a rebus in the sonnet's dedication grid. It's comprised of letters spelling Ver, the root word for truth. The cross stems from the R, which is equal to 17, and the word for T. There's a lot more here, which I explained in video 47. And although it's not offset, Peter Amundsen shows how OT is used for Rosicrucians on page 2 of The Tempest in the first folio. When the OT is replaced with RC, the initials they stand for, this acrostic reads, Arcadia, lie there my art. Some believe this is a reference to the Shakespeare manuscripts being buried at Oak Island. One of the things I go over in video 48 is the frontispiece to the History of the Royal Society, published in 1667, which includes a portrait of Francis Bacon. Turned sideways, the wreath above the bust of Charles II and the mast of the ship in the background make an OX. Now when we turn these OXs so that the line nearly touching the O stands vertically, both the character in the Bible frontispiece and the one in the Royal Society portrait appear to have the O on the right side of the cross, just like the one in the Bible inscription and the one in the dedication grid. The offset OT simulates the loop made by the R in the starogram. Here, because of how they position the O in relation to the cross, the OX or ox becomes OT. Again, the O is the rose and the T the cross. There are 17 faces and an OX. Like the 3 EVs found in the inscription, I think 17 ox is referring to Edward Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford. Also, the round frame around Jesus, the sacrificial lamb, is an O or rose. It's on the right side of the cross, so we also have the offset OT, which stands for Rosicrucians. Now there's something I'm wondering. Obviously a cross can be in the shape of an X, like St. Andrew's cross shown here. In addition to OT, do the Rosicrucians also use the letters OX, or the word ox, to also stand for Rosicrucians? Maybe it's something to look out for. Alright, in the frontispiece inscription of the King James Bible, there are 3 words referring to royalty. On line 9 is Majesties. The V shape made by the M has a lowercase e typeset directly above it. Line 12 begins with a lowercase ev hidden in the combination of the letters B and P and ends with Kings. Similar to the EV at the beginning of the line, the K and G combine and make 2 more letters, O and X spelling ox. Below this is the 4th T along the right side of the inscription spelled TIE in Majesty. Ox 4T or Ox 40 means Oxford. This is directly across from ox horns on the other side of the page. And on line 13, where Majesty appears, there's 1 more lowercase ev, hidden in the E in excellent. Alan Green figured out that the letters ST before it are drawn together, making a single letter R spelling Rex. If we begin with the V and read it the Rosicrucian way, right to left, it spells Ver, Vere, meaning truth. Who else can EV and Ox 4T be referring to other than Edward Vere, the Earl of Oxford? 3 times his initials are found as part of a word or at the beginning of a sentence ending with the word meaning king. If finding a message 3 times makes it true, then we're being told that truly Edward Vere was a king of some kind, and someone believed it was important enough to risk severe punishment to include it as part of the King James Bible frontispiece. Since I believe the Rosicrucians, which includes Francis Bacon, were responsible for the inscription, it means they're acknowledging Edward Vere as their king. Whether that's King of the Rosicrucians or the King of England, we'll have to see. History doesn't tell who Edward Vere really was, but someone left clues. We just have to find them. Thanks to Alexander Waugh, Chris Johnson, Patrick Jennings, Jack, and Ron Raffel. Special thanks to Alan Green for helping out with this one and finding that third example of EV Rex and Vere hidden in line 13. Thanks for watching.